but God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God. For what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even so, of God knoweth no man but the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us by God. As you're on your way to your seats, and if you can type it in the comments, share the title of the message for today, and that is simply this: I see it coming. I see it coming. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. We have been talking all month long from this idea that the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. That despite our current circumstance, despite our current situations, our faith in God leads us to a place where we're able to boldly say and declare that the best is yet to come. That where we are is not all there is, and because God has a best design for us, that if you're not at the best, it ain't over. And I believe that the reason why this has been taught, the reason why it has been drilled, is not just because it is a nice sentiment to say. It is because for many of us, as we have come and are transitioning out of the past 2 years, and as we are transitioning out of the pain and the trials and the situations that we have gone through as a nation and as individuals, if we can be honest, our faith has been impacted. Because when you have gone through hard trials and when you have gone through hard times, there is a tendency for you to lower your faith based upon where it is that you are. And for many of us, not just as a church body, but individually, I believe many of us have been receiving a challenge from God to believe for far more than we've experienced. And if you would allow us for a few moments, can we be willing to take our church face off and enter into the tension of God asking me to believe God for more when I've dealt with situations that have caused me to settle for less? Okay, I know I may not be talking to everybody, but there's some people who are saying, God, just help me to make it. God, just help me to get through. God, if you would just make it a little bit easier. And so even in terms of our prayers to an almighty and amazing God, we feel like we can't ask for too much because of the hell that we're in or that we have recently come out of. And so this idea to declare the best is yet to come, for some of us, it's caused some tension. Because we've been so hit where we're saying, God, I don't need the best. I just need you to get it a little bit better than where it is right now. So God is challenging us with a thought to believe that the best is yet to come. I might get ahead of myself, but I'm going to go ahead and say it here, because that idea, the best is yet to come, is a thought. But the challenge is for that thought to graduate to a belief. You can say the best is yet to come without ever believing it. So it's a thought, but then it has to graduate to a belief, which means you make the decision to believe despite your current circumstance. I ain't just saying this because they said to say it, but I actually believe that the best is yet to come. Now that's hard in and of itself, but I think even the tougher challenge is then for that belief to then graduate to the level of behavior. The best is yet to come is a thought. But then I've got to decide that I believe that. And then once I actually believe that, it's got to graduate from just simply being a belief to a behavior. For James says that faith, without works is dead. And so the other challenge, I'm just throwing out challenges to you. The other challenge is that now that I believe it, it has to become a behavior. What will my actions look like if I really believe the best is yet to come? Can you look at what I'm doing today as evidence that I really believe that I'm not going to stay where I am forever, but there's something greater God has for me beyond this place? Can you look at the way I walk? Can you listen to what I say and tell that I actually believe that God is preparing something for me that is better than where I am right now? What is the behavior that correlates to this belief? What is the disposition that one walks in that you can tell they believe that where they are right now is not all there is? What is the faith dialect that you can hear in an individual who are in situations that you know about, but the way they walk demonstrates they believe this ain't my final stop? What's the disposition of a person who says, listen, I don't have to worry about people who don't like me. I don't have to worry about haters. Because here's the reality I'm walking in. If you hate at this level, you ain't seen nothing yet, because I ain't even at my best right now. Yeah. Oh, okay. When you actually believe that the best is yet to come, it causes your behavior to change because you begin to align your behavior with where you're going and not where you are. And the struggle for many of us is we get locked into this pity party mentality where we always looking for something to soothe us, but do you believe? Let me get to the text. All right. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, we've heard it quoted. We know it by heart. The verse says, eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man the things God has prepared for them that love him. And oftentimes we say that verse and we quote that verse in isolation. And when we quote it in isolation, what it begins to bring to mind is that God has something prepared for us that we don't know exists. When we quote it in isolation, what it brings to mind is that God has the ability to surprise us with things that we don't know even he's working on. It brings and bears to mind this idea that God still has the ability to blow our mind. And I want to move on, but I got to affirm the fact that I don't care how good God has been to you, you have still not exhausted the goodness of God, and he's still able to blow your mind and do things that you ain't never seen. Have you ever been blessed with stuff you didn't have sense enough to pray about? Have you ever seen God do exceedingly and abundantly and above all that you could ask or think? I came to tell somebody that I know you've seen God do good, but he's still got more. So we rejoice in the idea that he's able to do what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. But there's another thought, a little bit of tension, and even I believe the description of a different type of best that's yet to come that happens when you transition from verse 9 to verse 10. In the ESV, verse 10 starts off by saying, these things. But in the King James Version, it says, but. When Paul is writing this letter, he is really talking about the miracle working activity of God bringing Jesus Christ in order that we might be saved. And verse number 9 of 2 Corinthians is really a throwback to Isaiah 64, verses 3 and 4. Can I read it for you? Isaiah chapter 64, verses 3 and 4 in the ESV says, when you did awesome things, talking about God, that we did not look for, you came down, the mountains quaked at your presence from the old. No one has heard or perceived by the ear, no eye has seen, and a God besides you who acts for those who wait for them. So in Isaiah, which is what Paul is referencing, he says, listen, God is going to come down and do something ain't nobody seen before. He's got the ability to surprise and do something brand new. But verse 10 of 2 Corinthians, Paul says, but I have revealed by my Spirit. Okay. Because in verse number 9, when it says, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has it entered into the mind of man, what Paul and Isaiah are saying is, what God does has not entered into the consciousness of humanity. But verse 10 says, but I have revealed it to you by my Spirit. Can I submit to you that there are some bests that God is going to do in your life that you have never thought of, dreamed of, imagined? It's a surprise. But the other kind of best is when the best that God is working on, he's already revealed it to you before you see it. Okay. There's some bests that are going to be a surprise to me. Then there are other bests that are going to be manifestations of the dream God gave me in a season where it wasn't a reality. And so, once again, here's the tension. For the stuff that God is going to surprise me about, there really isn't no responsibility, because he's going to do it. But what about the best that he done already told you? What about the best that is already sitting in your spirit, in your dream, in the notebook you wrote in 5 years ago? And he says, I'm going to do it, but because I've given it to you, there's a partnership we have to have in order to bring this best to pass. That's why it can't just be a thought. That's why it can't just be a belief. That's why there has to be behavior. Because the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Other translations say, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Because when God gives you a vision, that vision restrains you because you got to line your behavior up with what you see. And the question is your walk lining up with what you say? Or are your actions truly in line with what it is God has shown you and what you believe? Paul says, listen, I've revealed it to you by my Spirit. He goes on to say, nobody knows the Spirit of God unless they have the Spirit of God. And so what he tells this church at Corinth is, God has revealed some things to your spirit. And you have the responsibility to believe in them, even though you have no physical evidence to confirm it. You have the responsibility to believe that the best is yet to come, even when you can't find nobody else to believe in it with you. You're going to have the responsibility to walk according to the revelation that I've placed in your spirit. Even when that vision causes you to be misunderstood, Because the people closest to you don't understand why in the world, in the position that you're walking like you're walking. It's because I'm not walking based upon what I see. I'm walking based upon what I believe. So we can talk all day about the best is yet to come. But what happens when the best causes you to have friction with your family members? What happens when the friction causes church people to look at you crazy? What happens when you're walking according to the best that God has for you and it causes people to think you're arrogant because they don't understand why you got the type of swag you got with the type of money you made, but you understand this is just a pass way through. And I actually believe that the best is yet to come, even if some of those behaviors are going to cause me to be misunderstood by you. And the problem too many of us have is we are so addicted to being liked that we will reject what God is giving our spirit because we're in relationships with people who want to keep us at one level. And every time you try to walk according to the best, it's an affront to their mediocrity. And because they want to keep you stuck and bound, you are fighting trying to be what they want you to be when God is calling you to something. I know you say the best is yet to come, but when you actually start walking like it, it's going to cause some people to be upset with you. Because they'll want you to deny your dreams to validate their disobedience to God. Because they want to keep you at a level that makes them comfortable because they haven't given God a yes. And so God says, listen, I didn't put something in your spirit that the people around you don't agree with, but I want to know, can you walk according to what I said, even if it causes them? When God reveals that he has something for you that is more than where it is that you are, when you start walking in it, it begins to reveal that some of the people who said they loved you only loved you while you were where you are because that caused them to feel comfortable. Even some of the people who helped us, they walked around with a Superman complex or bragging about how they helped you. And what's crazy is you thought that if I got myself together, they would be happy, not knowing the whole time helping you was feeding their ego. I don't know who you sit next to in the sanctuary or in your house, but you ought to just look at somebody and say, do you really want me to reach my best? I know you say you love me. I know you done supported me, but I want to know that when I walk into it, am I going to receive hate, or can you congratulate me when I walk into it the same way you helped me when I was down? I want to know, do you really want me to reach? Okay. Because if me reaching the best that God has for me is the result of my connection and obedience to God, sometimes God helped me to get to my best by removing people I thought I needed. And I want to tell somebody, while you're afraid of doing the thing God called you to do because you're worried about how it's going to make them feel, God said, go ahead and jump. And even if they leave, I still got you. sometimes I gotta cut off what you thought you needed to make it. So if you cannot stand me being elevated, exit stage left. I'll be okay. If you cannot celebrate me walking into my best, and listen. Let me calm down. So because what we've got to remember is that sometimes, and what I realized is that even in preaching, when we talk about the other people and the people who can't stand it and the people who don't like it, we got to be very careful, because the Bible says we've got to take heed unless we fall. So there can be a little bit of all of that in us. So anytime you start talking about what people are doing or what church people are doing or what they ain't doing, you got to understand that there's the ability and the propensity for some of that to be in you, all right? So while we understand that there are some people who don't like us being elevated, you got to check your own spirit while you're waiting on God to do something for you. When God does it for somebody else, can you shout like it happened for you? Can you celebrate like God did it for you? Can you rejoice over what God does for your neighbor like he did it for you? You got to check your own spirit, because you want everybody to clap when God does it for you. Who are you clapping for? But I have revealed it to you by my Spirit. Nobody knows the Spirit of God unless they have the Spirit of God. Just like nobody truly knows a human being unless besides the person who has the spirit of that person. And so the other thing that this bears out is that not only does God have a best that he has revealed to us, but when you understand that God is capable and willing to reveal his will to you, it will cause you to desire a greater level of holiness in your life. I know I may have just cursed in the church of 2022, but listen, when you understand that God reveals secrets to his friends, and he will give you the intention that he has for you in order that you might be grounded, in order that you might be anchored, in order that you may be secure, in order that you may be encouraged, in order that your faith may be built to the place where you're not looking at your current situations and causing your disposition to be regulated to there, but you're allowing your spirit to be connected to where God is taking you. You got to understand that this is an amazing privilege, and to know that this privilege is available ought to cause you to say, I need to make sure I'm connected. Because some of the mistakes that happen in our life are the result of us basing our decisions off of our intellect and not having insight into the spirit. And one of the ways that your behavior has to align with your belief that the best is yet to come is that you don't just expect God to do great things for your future and not be willing to live for him in your today. The fact that God has something better for me ought to cause the desire of my prayer life to increase. It ought to cause me to want to get in my word, because I realize that some of the mistakes and some of the sins that are in my own life, don't look at me like that, that are in our lives is due to a void in our relationship with God. So God says, there's some things I'm going to surprise you with, and then there's some things I'm going to do that have already been dropped in your spirit. But when you get the revelation of what I'm getting ready to do, that ought to cause you to draw closer to me. Because there are some people who think they can just speak it and manifest it for themselves. Which is why Paul is telling the Corinthian church, the wisdom that you received is not the wisdom of men. I'm not talking about philosophies. I'm not talking about new age. I'm not talking about what the experts in the world say. I'm not talking about just your affirmation. Can I help you for 1 second? Let me go here. The world has hijacked what manifestation means. And when the world says manifesting, what they're talking about is just writing vision boards and having positive statements, and you can bring things into your life. That is not biblically defined manifestation. In the Bible, what manifestation is when God reveals in the natural what he has already done in the spirit. And so what he's saying is, you as a believer in Jesus Christ has the ability to walk in true manifestation because I'm going to show it to you before you see it. And give you the ability to walk at a place where I don't just believe God's going to do it, but when I look at it in the eyes of the Spirit, I see it coming. Some folk might get upset with me, but I'm walking according to my spiritual sight that I see best headed in my direction. I see what God is getting ready to do, and you might not understand it, but that's okay. He didn't reveal it to you. And I have to deal with, you have to deal with, always wanting to be understood, that you delay the steps God is telling you to make because you're trying to bring on board people God never intended you to bring on board. If you see the vision, if you catch it, if you support me, let's go. If you can't see it, I've got to be okay with that. And understand that what God is bringing to pass for my life is bigger than me. It is connected to others, and it is too big to fall if one relationship is lost. I've got to be okay with understanding that what God has shown me, he may not have shown everybody else. And I've got to be willing to walk towards my best, even if that's going to cause me to walk away from you. Because why would I fight to try to bring you along when I had to leave my own habits behind and had to leave my own bad thinking behind and had to leave my own self-doubt behind and had to leave my own low self-worth behind. And I'm going to do all of this to leave parts of my history behind, but I'm going to wait for you. I've got to be okay with walking according to what God has shown me, even if it's going to cause some people to not understand. It's what happened in the life of Joseph. When Joseph started telling his dreams to his brothers, they got so mad they sold him into slavery. And it took years later for them to realize what God gave you benefited us. And Joseph had to be spiritually mature enough to say, I'm in a position where I could get you back. But even the separation was a part of God's plan to bring me into what he showed me. And now that you need my help, I'm going to help you. The word of God declares, better is the end of a thing than the beginning. And my question for all of us here today, has that thing moved beyond just a thought? And do you actually believe that your best is coming to the point where you can see it in your spirit before you ever see it in the natural? Let me give you a few examples, and I promise I'm out of here. There's a new car that I want. And because I want it, if you buy it for me and you pull it up outside, I don't need to look at the manual to understand the features. Because I want it, I've already looked at all the YouTube videos, all of the research. I could sell the car to you. Because when you believe that something is coming, you don't wait till you hold it to prepare for it. You start preparing for it in faith. So that when that thing comes, other people are shocked, but to some degree, you just get in what you were already expecting. You just sit down in it. And it looked like you've been here before, but it was because I was preparing before it pulled up. Because it was in my spirit before I sat behind the wheel. So here's my question. Are you really excited about your future? Do you really believe that the best is yet to come? Do you really believe that out of all of the pain and the trauma that you've endured, there is still something God has prepared for you, some of which is going to be a surprise, and some of which is going to be like sitting in the car you didn't already research? And if you believe it, what are you doing today that proves it? What steps are we making today that testifies of what we really believe? If you really believe the best is yet to come, some of the stuff you're complaining about, you'll understand it's part of the process that God could reveal in the natural what he already revealed in your spirit. If you really understood the best is yet to come, some of these problems wouldn't be so magnified, but you would understand that all things work together for the good of those who love God and to those who are the called according to his purpose. If you really believe the best is yet to come, I can look at your praise and tell what you believe. Because you won't praise like you're waiting on it, you'll praise like you see it. Whatever you've been waiting on, whatever you've been anticipating, whatever you've been praying about, whatever God has already shown you in your spirit, can you lift up a shout like you see it heading in your direction? Can you praise like you actually believe the best is yet to come? We don't sing it in a little bit, but can you wait, not wait till the battle is over, but can you shout right now like you see it heading in your direction? I know you say it, but how will you leave tomorrow morning? Will you live in defeat? Or will you live like you believe? That eye is not seen, ear is not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared. But there's some things he put in my spirit that not too long from now, I'm going to be walking in what I believe. Come on, if you believe that, put your hands together one more time and give God praise.